I want to talk to you about a word, reparation. Reparations, the making of amends for wrong or injury done. Okay? The other definition, compensation in money, material, labor, etc., payable by a defeated country or another country to an individual for loss suffered during the result of war. Monetary or other compensation payable by a country to an individual for historical wrongs. Keep that in mind. Reparations have been paid to several groups for the wrongs by the United States. Off the top of my head, the Native Americans, the Jewish people, the Indians have all been paid reparations for the wrongs that were committed by the United States of America. Now, when the thought of reparations mentioned for the slavery in America and the African Americans who built this country, a lot of the politicians, they get dumbfounded. They act like they don't know what we're talking about. Okay? But the slaves, the African American slaves, are the ones that built this country, and they should receive reparations immediately. What I mean is all descendants of African American slaves should be paid reparations. Check out the merchandise available for purchase. To purchase merchandise, click on the links available in the video description. Thanks. These tees can be purchased on black, white, or gray backgrounds. Please smash the bell icon to be notified of new content. Please subscribe, like, comment, and share. Thanks for watching. Only history of reparations in the United States. The papers were handed out one by one to elderly recipients, most frail, some in wheelchairs. To some, it may have looked like the run-of-the-mill governmental ceremony with usual federal fanfare. But to Norman Mineta, a California congressman and future Secretary of Transportation, in the 1990 event was deeply symbolic. The papers were checked for $20,000, accompanied by a letter of apology for the internment of over 120,000 Japanese Americans during World War II. They were first issued under Civil Liberties Act of 1988, a historic law that offered monetary redress to over 80,000 people. So this thing of reparations is nothing new to America. Mineta has spearheaded the law fighting for a government apology and a financial redress for nearly a decade. As he watched, he flashed back to his own internment during the war. First at the racetrack, then at Hart Mountain War Relocation Center in Wyoming. His family had been forced to leave their home and business behind. Now Mineta felt the government had finally begun the process of reconciliation. The country made a mistake and admitted it was wrong. He says it offered an apology and a redress payment. To me, beauty and the strength of this country is that it is able to admit wrong and issue redress. Okay? Now this has been the history to given to other groups besides African Americans. Today the law is remembered as the most successful push for reparations for a historical wrong in U.S. history. But the United States track record of reparations and official apologies is scattershot, and it has yet to tackle one of its most glaring injustices, the enslavement of African Americans. Many argue that slavery in America has legacies that continue to shape society today. Though demands for apologies and financial restitution are not new, reparations for states' behavior toward its citizens are relatively modern. The idea that a state apologizing for, much less paying for, its actions toward its own citizens was almost unthinkable until Nazi Germany orchestrated a large-scale genocide. About 6 million Jews were murdered during the Holocaust, and for the first time the world grappled with how to make a nation pay money to atone for historical injustice. There was a sense that Germans had done something very bad and needed to make amends, says historian John Torpy, a professor at the Graduate Center of the City University of New York and the author of Making Whole What Has Been Smashed on Reparations Politics. That was the price of admission for a return to the community of civilized nations. Germany has since paid hundreds of millions of dollars to Israel, individual Holocaust survivors, and others. Since then, the United States has followed suit, but though it has paid reparations to some groups it wronged through unjust treaties, coups, and brutal experiments, others who still contend with the ramifications of the historic injustices continue to wait for compensation, meaning African Americans and ADOS, African descendants of slaves. Native American reparations belated payments for unjustly seized land. World War II sparked a movement to address one of the United States' historic wrongs, its treatment of Native Americans over centuries of conquest and colonization. Native Americans enlisted in World War II in disproportionately high numbers, 44,000 or nearly 13% of the entire population of Native Americans at the time, served as cold talkers who stumped the enemy with their tribal languages and brave service members who fought in the European and Pacific theaters of war. After World War II, momentum to compensate tribes for the unjust seizure of their lands. In 1946, Congress created the Indians Claims Commission, a body designated to hear historical grievances and compensate tribes for lost territories. It commissioned extensive historical research and ended up awarding about $1.3 billion to 176 tribes and brands. The money was largely given to groups which distributed the money amongst their members. For some tribes whose members didn't live on a reservation, note historians Mike Leader and Jake Page, the money was distributed per capita. For those who did live on reservations, the money was often earmarked for tribal projects. However, the actual funds only averaged out to about $1,000 per person of Native American ancestry, and most of the money was put up in trust accounts held by the United States government, which has been accused of mismanagement over the years. Gambling has had more positive impact on the quality of life on reservations than the Indian Claims Commission Act, Leader Page writes. And it took decades for a formal apology. Tucked inside a defense spending bill, the United States apologized for what it characterized as many instances of violence, maltreatment, and neglect inflicted on Native peoples by citizens of the United States in 2009. So with all that being said, why does the government continue to act as though they don't know what we're talking about when it comes to reparations to descendants of African slaves? Did you know that President Obama awarded another $12 million to the survivors of the Holocaust? So what are your thoughts on this? Do you think that it's time that the United States pay reparations to the African descendants of slavery? Let me know in the comments. Thank you. Thanks for watching In the Name of Justice. Listen, if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button, please hit the bell notification, and please share your comments. I'd like to know what you guys think about the video. Thanks for watching.